Hey, it's Mistress Carrie, reporting for duty from MCHQ for episode 53 of the Mistress Carrie podcast. This episode of the podcast is sponsored by Digital Federal Credit Union, better known as DCU. And not only is DCU a great place to bank at, but they are also a great place to work at. And they are hiring for full and part-time positions for several of their branch locations throughout Massachusetts and New Hampshire right now. So if you, a friend, or a family member is looking for a career change or to start a new career at a credit union, making a difference for their members and their families, just visit dcu.org/careers. DCU is proud to be an equal employment opportunity and affirmative action employer. That's dcu.org/careers. This episode of the podcast is also sponsored by Jumptown Skydiving, America's oldest skydiving drop zone located conveniently off Route 2 in Orange, Massachusetts. If you have always wanted to check skydiving off of your bucket list, do it today. Jumptown is open 7 days a week. And if you work in the service industry, Jumptown understands you can't get the weekend off. That's why they offer service industry discounts on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays with tandem skydives as low as $185. And if you organize a group, for every person you bring with you, you get $10 off your jump. Bring 10 people and you jump free. Get on the plane and climb to 13,000 feet in the air and jump out. Call 978-544-5321 to book your tandem skydive or visit jumptown.com for more information. Okay, this week, my guest on the podcast is Leigh Kakaty from Pop Evil. I've known Leigh a really long time, and he's been holed up in Michigan with the family riding out the pandemic. The band just released their latest album, Versatile. Or is it Versatile? We'll find out in the episode. Leigh and I got caught up on the last year and a half and how he's been spending his time, what went into making the new record, how he writes songs, what his home state of Michigan and the city of Detroit mean to him and the band, what he misses about touring, how he feels about the future of rock and roll, the fans, and so much more. So if you haven't picked up the new Pop Evil album yet, or you haven't listened to it yet, it's called Versatile and it's out now. I'm really excited for you to hear this episode. Leigh and I had a great conversation, and it was so nice to get caught up. I just can't wait to see him live again. So allow me to introduce you to Leigh Kakaty from Pop Evil.
Hey, what's up? This is Sully from Godsmack. Strap on those boots, baby, because you are now in the trenches of the war room with the one and only Mistress Carrie right here on the Mistress Carrie podcast.
What's up? This is Joe Rogan, and you're listening to Mistress Carrie.
Her hair so lovely, pretty eyes.
Hey, this is Brent from Shinedown, and you're listening to Mistress Carrie. Hey, Carrie, go put your bra on, girl.
Hey, this is Steven Tyler, and you be listening to the baddest bitch in Boston, Mistress Carrie.
What's up? This is Aaron from Stain, and you're listening to Mistress Carrie.
Hi, everybody. This is Dave Grohl from the Foo Fighters, and you're listening to the one, the only Mistress Carrie.
Hey, this is David from the band Disturbed, and you're listening to the baddest bitch in Boston, Mistress Carrie.
Hi, Bruce Dickinson here from Iron Maiden. Yes, indeed, Miss Whiplash herself, Mistress Carrie, is here to unchain your brain.
Hi, this is Flea from the Red Hot Chili Peppers. You're listening to Mistress Carrie.
This is Dennis Leary. You are listening to my favorite, Mistress Carrie.
Hey, this is Corey from Stone Sour, and you have the privilege of listening to Mistress Carrie. Oh, God. Oh, yeah.
This meeting is being recorded, Leigh.
I love it. It's on. I'm okay with it.
Oh my God, it's so good to see you.
Great to see you too. Thanks for having me.
How are you?
I'm doing great, man. I'm just been lounging. I'm actually in between kids' games. I get to see all the nieces, nephews, all the young ones in the family lineage are growing, and they're doing their sports things. So it's been nice to kind of be around and get to do that, be a part of their lives for a bit. So that's cool.
Are you the guy on the sidelines that's like screaming that can't be controlled, that all the other parents think are idiots?
No, I'm incognito, very much so. Yeah, all the parents very much know what I do, so I kind of go and kind of fly on the wall type vibe. I don't want to embarrass, but the kids will get mad.
What kind of games are we talking about? What are you going and watching?
Baseball, soccer, whatever they're doing. A little bit of, I think it's flag football. You know what I mean? And I'm always behind, because I don't get to see the family enough. So it's just always kind of, when I get to roll in, they're all surprised. And, it is what it is. So it's been nice to kind of, again, nothing about my life normally has to do with any kind of going to games or anything like that. So it's been nice to kind of just be normal for a minute and get to take part in some of those activities and, be around and razz the young ones and, let them know what a has-been I once was. So it's all good.
Are you cool, Uncle Leigh?
You'd have to ask them.
I get a chance to spend a lot of time like with my nieces and nephews, and Auntie Carrie always tries to buy the cool gifts and the ones that make all the noise. Is that what Uncle Leigh does too?
Yeah. Well, I try, but they all have everything. My brother and other family members spoil them so much that, I don't think but they're getting older, so they're starting to understand, what cool gifts are rather, but they have so much. I don't think they really, I've tried that early on in their early years and it never worked. So I kind of gave up. I'm just like, whatever, I was a lost cause. But
don't worry. When they become teenagers, they're going to want all access passes for Pop Evil tours.
That's when, hopefully that'll be the cool moment. And when your uncle's status shines through. So we'll see.
Congratulations on the release of the new album. Finally.
Thank you. Finally, it felt like it was never going to happen. I'm so grateful that it's out.
For the last, year plus since WAAF went off the air, which, we're all still kind of grieving that loss and had to do it locked down, right?
Right.
It's been really interesting launching the podcast and being able to have conversations during lockdown about how people were handling this downshift, how musicians were handling constantly being gone, like what you were talking about, and now not being able to go anywhere. And with you guys, you were going to release the record, releasing songs. Like, what was that whole process like for you and the band?
It sucked. I mean, much like you guys, we were trying to figure out what our tomorrow was with any kind of, with certainty, it was, for us too, everything was full guns blazing, ready to go for that spring tour. We were going to launch the album. And of course, then COVID hit. We thought maybe it would be just 2 months. We were kind of hopeful. And then we'd be back on tour in the spring, everything be back to normal. And then of course, being from Michigan as well, the band is very much rooted in the States. So, the lockdown started to get even tighter for us in Michigan. So it was like, wow, we're not even be able to get to our storage units. Like, how are we going to even get to rehearsals? So then it became, summer. Okay, cool. Can we be back to work by fall? And then of course that turned into a year. And then it was a different mindset for everybody. I hadn't seen the band for months. I know that after talking to them, some of them were doing other jobs just to make, I think I did a couple interviews that kind of got construed, but I think people kind of have this weird fallacy that a modern day rock star just gets to sit around all day. This is not what exists. We're very much a band that has to keep the lights on by touring month after month after month. And a lot of bands are like us that have to do the same thing. So I think a lot of fans were shocked to hear yes, we can't just go back to a normal job because who's going to hire us when we're just like, we can't work weekends and we have to be willing to go tour on a whim. So, so it has to be like odds and end jobs with friends that we've had and people we know that would let us kind of, care about our job, our real job to, give us an opportunity to make some work and make some money on the side. And, the vibe kind of shifted to, it wasn't so much about Pop Evil then, it was more of the human element was just surviving and getting by and making sure our families were safe and our band family was safe. So it was a lot of ups and downs and, just like for everyone else, it was the same for us.
I had a really interesting conversation with Josh Todd from Buckcherry. He went to phlebotomy school because he wanted to have a backup plan to provide for his family because nobody knew how long this was going to go on. And he was like, well, if I get into some kind of medical thing, I figure that I'd have some pretty good job security and they don't care about my tattoos there.
Yeah. This is a great thing, with someone like Josh too. He's been doing this for so long. For me too, I'm sure that all of us relate. We've all been doing this since we were very, very little. And so to actually have a year where we sang at all or played zero, it's devastating to the mental health of any musician. And, I had those same flashbacks too. I was like, okay, well, maybe I could sit out a few months. Okay, I'm pushing it to go a year. Any much past a year is gonna be devastating to any true musician. It's just, you can't really afford to sit out much longer than that. So yeah, the backup plan kind of thoughts definitely crept in, and that's of course any musician's fear is to go home, right? So I mean, it was very much a reality, and it's a very stressful time, and just being able to have songs kind of being able to be released and have an album done was definitely refreshing. We didn't have to worry about trying to get to a studio and trying to finish up something that we had. We were very blessed and fortunate in that position that we were pretty much done with the record, and everything else we had to do, we could do via email and FaceTime. So, it let us kind of dive in and just really digest this pandemic, and it gave us a lot of time to think about the pros and the cons, that's for sure.
I've been joking with people because, I'm that person at funerals that makes jokes. Like the gallows humor. It's how I get through stuff.
Right.
And with WAAF going off the air at the end of February, after 50 years on the air, I told everybody, like, I was out of work before it was cool, before COVID, because I had a couple weeks head start to have my world completely shattered. Because AAF went off the air at the end of February, and it was like, oh, okay, it was this mad rush. And like COVID was like, it was a story on the news, but it wasn't anything that anybody thought was going to take over the world the way that it did. And for radio, just like with touring musicians or whatever, the whole industry just changed. And I remember having that sit down with myself pretty early on and going, well, I don't know if I'm going to be able to go back to a radio station the way that I used to, which is why I built my new studio, MCHQ. So welcome to my new studio.
It looks awesome too, by the way. It looks phenomenal. It's got so much character. I love it.
It's like having my own private radio studio. It's the cleanest studio I've ever worked in.
Yeah, I bet. Right.
It's like you can walk through here with a white glove, and it's like, ooh, that's because radio stations are usually disgusting.
You were absolutely, yeah. They sure are. Some can be, no doubt.
And then to be able to like start my video show, launch my podcast, my website, like all of the things that kind of bands have to have in tandem with your touring and recording life, is to have all of this other stuff set. I had none of that. And so I remember having this thought to myself, like, okay, I'm about to spend a bunch of money, start my own business, and kind of go out on a limb here and be like, all right, I'm doing this on my own. I hope I don't fuck it all up and fall on my face.
Yeah.
Because this is not a time to make bad financial decisions. And thankfully, with, like you were saying, FaceTime and all of this other stuff, technology-wise, I was able to keep myself working and start all of this new stuff. Sure. And now for you guys getting the record out for real, and for me getting back on the radio in a major way with the podcast and everything, it's like, do you feel like the day that the record came out that you actually were able to take a deep breath for once?
Yeah. I mean, it was almost like an emotional moment, it's just when something's taken away from you that I guess in ways we've all taken for granted, right? I mean, we never thought the music business or radio would be taken away from us the way that it was during this pandemic, So to have it when it came back and the album was released, I mean, there was and I'm sure it'll be more emotional when you're finally on stage again and you realize it just strips you to the core, right? And it reminds you of why you really got into this in the first place. And yeah, they can take away the money or the fame or whatever it is, but to take away the fans and just the pure opportunity to play and make music in front of people was a shattering blow. And just like you, and it's interesting though to see how people reinvent themselves. And now it's almost like, I can't wait to be in the position you are. You've almost made yourself stronger than you were pre-COVID. It's like, wow, I can do this now on podcasts. It's almost like we're not afraid anymore of that fear, which was like, what am I going to do after radio? Like, what am I going to do? Or what am I going to do when, the band's done? Now it's like, well, the band's been done for a year, technically, I haven't seen the band members. We haven't been in any rehearsals, and for a lot of bands, there's going to be a lot of changes. I mean, bands are about people's lives, human beings, and people's lives have all changed. So getting back into tours, it'll be interesting to see, where the dynamics go and how people's goals have changed or evolved. So it's again, it's awesome that the fans have been following us every way. I guess the security and all that is, we've all been going through it. So it's not like it's just we're on alone on this island. We're all kind of dealing with it together. And I think that the fans are smarter than ever these days because of these cool things like podcasts and opportunity to to hear your favorite band's perspectives rather than just hearing the music. You get more of a human element to it, which I think fans understand, and they're more compassionate to just, yeah, that sucks, but you know what? Kudos to you guys for keeping it going. Kudos to you for putting the podcast in and not letting someone else that said, AF is done, to say they can say that's done, but they can't say ever Mistress Carrie's done. You say when you're done, and I think that's rad. And you built that fan base for so long as we have, that it's like, if we just keep giving content that's honest, real, true, that's what a modern day rock star is, right? It's just being honest to your expression, whether it's musical or it's just vocal that we're doing now, sharing these obstacles and these triumphs together. And I think that, going forward, I think there's going to be more demand for this now. It's not just the phone call interview that we call in. It's like, hey, I'm exhausted. I'm dripping sweat right after the show, and we're having the FaceTime right there. How was the show? Hold on, let me get a breath. Can I get some water? They want to see your life. They want to get into it, whether it's a band member or a band, or whether it's you, a personality that's been on the air for longer than we've all been bands. You've been paving your way in a totally different way and direction that fans are just as curious and excited to learn about as they might be ours or any other band. So it's really cool to see kind of how this social media kind of growth has happened since, COVID, and it'll be interesting to see post-COVID where it goes moving forward.
One of the things that I think everyone has learned over the last year and a half has been your relationship with whoever, right? Romantic relationships, band relationships, family relationships. They either got way worse or they are now strong as hell. And when you talk about band dynamics and getting back out on the road, or you talk about your relationship with your spouse or your kids or your family, getting locked with them, or not being able to see them when you used to be able to see them all the time. I mean, if your marriage right now made it through COVID, you're never getting divorced.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Or you're realizing, I hate this person, call the divorce attorney, I never want to see your ugly face again.
Right. Yeah, no, it's a good point. I mean, in the early process of COVID, I remember the family being like, when are you going on tour again? So it took a minute to kind of and again, like, for at least I can speak for myself. I mean, I think we were normally home about 2 weeks at a time. We never usually get more than 2 weeks off. So, it's very easy to blow any kind of negativity or awkwardness, away, because we'll take care of it when we get back, or next time, next tour. And now it was like, whoa, no, we're here. 2 months turned into 3, turned into a year. So it was interesting. Like, I agree with you, like, now that we've gone through, I think those relationships that have made it through are a lot stronger. And I think that, it'll be interesting now going forward, again, how that dynamic either continues to grow, or do we fall back into some of the old habits that we had before COVID?
And we have a chance too to keep the good stuff, right? Like, for me,
right.
Now that I built my own studio and I'm in charge of like my own work environment, I got to tell you, spending 3 hours in the car every day fighting Boston traffic, I don't miss that.
I don't blame you. You don't have to do that now, Right.
And it's like, what would you do with 3 more hours in your day? Like, that's like winning the lottery, right?
It is. It really is. Absolutely. And sometimes those commutes are early in the morning as well. And now you can kind of, direct your own schedule, and like you said, that fear of not having to worry about spending the money now on a studio in-house. I mean, you already did that, So you don't have to be so totally torn to the studio in your position. You can kind of be more mobile and like you said too, I mean, even being on site, you got the equipment now to be on site to do interviews. If you want to go to a show or a festival and bring the podcast to the show, so to speak. So, I mean, there's just so many more outlets you have from your perspective, and even from a band perspective too. I mean, we got the element to just take that live stream. I mean, I remember before pandemic too, I had no idea how to do any of these FaceTimes. I remember the first couple of interviews, it was all hacked up. I was like, am I doing this right? The audio wouldn't work, or the phones flip. So it's exciting now too, to show, the fans that more intimate perspective of just what you're going through in everyday life. And I think that's more entertaining. I mean, you think about where YouTube's going and where the social media aspect's going from a TV perspective. Since COVID, all I do is watch YouTube. I don't even watch TV. You know, I mean, YouTube, I can watch whatever I want. So as a band, as for you as well, I mean, with your podcast, you can create your own channel, you know, and basically, you know, put out whatever you want on your channel 24/7, you know, 365 a year, you know, you can do your own thing. And of course, our channel, it can be all Pop Evil 24/7, you know, and you can, again, give your fan base an outlet to live in your space as long as they'd like to. So it's very cool, you know, definitely interesting.
One of the things that I started last year, which is exactly what we're talking about, was I started going live on Facebook in March.
Yeah.
And I have a room in my house that I call the War Room, which has got all my military stuff in it. And that's where the bar is. So I started going live on Facebook, and it turned into a show. We're 135 episodes in now.
Wow.
And it went from a nightly thing live on my cell phone to a weekly produced video show with logos. You can come on via Skype if you want to come on.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And what I'm realizing, because I think we've been in the middle of like craziness, right? Whether it be the political stuff, the world stuff, the COVID stuff, whatever. But what I'm realizing is that in that 135 episodes of Cocktails in the War Room, I've documented an incredibly historical time in my life, a time that kids and grandkids are going to learn about in school. We literally just lived through a global pandemic, which seems like a stupid thing to say out loud because everybody knows. But when you really stop and think about, they're going to be talking about this for 100 years.
Yeah.
And we've had the ability with technology to document what that day-to-day life was like. Yeah.
Yeah. It's crazy when you think about it from that perspective. You know, 100 years ago, when our last pandemic supposedly happened, there was just books and you know, words that were typed and printed and saved. Now you get those visual accounts from all aspects, you know, and all over the world, you get the perspective. So if someone in Boston or someone here in Detroit was trying to figure out what it was like in their city, in their community, what were they dealing with? Well, there you go. I mean, it can be as specific as that. So it's very interesting. Like you said, we're documenting it, no doubt about it.
Yeah, it's totally crazy. Well, I want to go back because, you know, you just released a record. The world is opening. Masks are coming off, vaccines. You know, my 5G is amazing. I got vaccinated now. I don't have Wi-Fi problems anymore.
I love it.
Everything is great.
Yeah.
And now we're actually able to like start going to concerts again, start getting together again, start doing things in person again. And we're all coming out of this coma, really, where we've had nothing to do but sit around and think about what we miss the most. And all of us got into music when we were kids because it's something that we just loved. And so I want to go back to when you were younger. And what was it that brought you to music? Was it your parents, older siblings? Like, do you remember what it was that made you go, "Oh my God, this is awesome"?
There's different moments, right? It's like chapters. You know, I mean, I think back in my earliest tape. I mean, the people laugh, but it's just my true story. I remember, you know, my first tape. I remember going to like J.C. Penney's, and I got that Huey Lewis tape or something like that. And my dad or mom got it, and I of course took it because it was a tape. I was drawn to not even so much the band as much as it was a cassette tape. Music came out of this tape. I remember taking my fingers and winding through the tape and being fascinated. And then it was a James Wilder CD. Remember that Nobody Gonna Break My Stride, or tape? I remember that tape. I was real little, you know, and then. Of course, as I got a little older, it changed in the first CDs. So my first CD, literally, there was two of them, I remember, and it was total blend of maybe where Pop Evil is. It was the Guns N' Roses. Like, again, I was real little. The Guns N' Roses CD, I remember smelling it, that I still do to this day when we get it. And then it was
it has that smell.
It has that smell, right? So it was the Guns N' Roses CD in one hand, and it was Do the Bartman when The Simpsons first dropped. So, I mean, I was very much a kid. You know, I still love Bart Simpson back in the day. And I remember looking at the artwork of Guns N' Roses. More so the Guns N' Roses album affected me. I don't remember anything about the Simpsons one. But I remember opening up the artwork, and the girl's got her panties down to her ankles, and you're like, good God, this is would have been. And of course, you know, we're young boys looking at Playboy then. probably, fascinated being a young boy. But I remember being just mesmerized by the whole vibe of a CD. Like you could look at the artwork, you could get the vibe. Obviously the Guns N' Roses logo with the skeletons was just everything, as well as the music. I remember again, but at those days I still wanted to play for the Lakers or the Pistons. I had no dreams about playing instruments full time. I couldn't play. I was just a kid, and then of course, as the 90s started to roll in, I wanted the Seattle thing, Pearl Jam, Soundgarden, all those bands where I was now a young adult, so I could play the guitar. I was starting to dive in. I mean, someone like Eddie Vedder just really changed my life because he could be heavy at times, and then he could still strip it down, MTV Unplugged, and make you cry your eyes out. I mean, it just, he had melody, he could sing. I remember being like, wow, like I want to do that. And then again, I grew up on the Great Lakes, so Michigan played a big, big role in probably, who I ended up becoming as a musician. It was always the yin and yang. We were a test market in Michigan. So you always got a little bit of this, then a little bit of that. As soon as you always thought you were going to go all the way in on this, well, then something else would come up. And then of course the Kid Rock and Eminem thing very much was big where we grew up, and the pride that they had for Michigan. And I always say, to my Michigan brothers and sisters that all I wanted my whole life was to get the hell out of Michigan. And now all I want to do is get back, so it's interesting. But I think that, as I started to really play in a band, I would, the mix between, metal, rock, and alt was always in Michigan. And again, we never had no money. So growing up, every kind of band was coming to Michigan, and we had nothing else to do because again, it's cold here, just much like in Boston, So, when shows came, we always had the hookup because we had our own band. So we would go watch everything. Eve 6, I remember Splendor coming in, a lot of these alt bands that were big on the radio at the time. We had a big alt rock station here in Grand Rapids. And then of course we had a metal station. So of course we'd be in there, everything from Pantera to Seven Dust even would come through. We'd party with those guys, so it was, again, the list goes on. And then of course, even country acts we'd go see. So again, we were always, it wasn't so much about what I liked. It was like, wow, like what's bringing all these people together to sing for 4 minutes, this one or two songs that these people like, what was moving these people to come together for these moments. And that I remember always really resonating with me about just kind of understanding about how to write a hook and how to write, things that I always call them like what makes grandma sing, and I'll never forget it too. I was at a wedding, probably late 90s, and my grandma was at it, and they were playing Pantera, and respect, you talking to me? And grandma's in there like aggressive about it. Are you talking to me? Like all in my face about it. And I'm like, my grandma's this cute little white Canadian girl, she just not even a care on the world. And she's like hardcore, like Phil on me in my face, and I was like, wow, like, wow, you like Pantera? And she's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, that's who sings it. And she's just like, I could care less. I just love the song. And I thought that was interesting how, it's like what moves people from all different walks of life, age barrier, male, female, gender. It doesn't matter what our differences are. They just come together because they understand the language of music and they want to embrace it. And I just thought that really resonated. It's just, I've never forgotten it. Like it was my grandma, bless her. She just recently passed.
Oh,
but,
I'm sorry.
she's just, thank you. But I was home for it. I didn't get to see her, but we were off. But, it's just kind of those, again, the human elements. I think as you get older, you realize that you're not going to make everyone happy. Not everyone's going to like your podcast. Not everyone's going to like your band, but the people that do, right? It's that human element, the people that care. Like that's what you're really trying to do is make that difference in somebody's life, especially now since COVID's here. It's like, if you can bring some kind of happiness when there's so much tension, like you can just feel it sometimes when you're out and about and wearing your mask around town, or now we get to take them off. You still feel the tension that sometimes this exists in cities and towns. It's just like, man, I just want love, man. You got a choice, I think, in life. You can either choose to help the issues and try to put some positivity out there, or you can add to the problem, man. It's your choice. And, I obviously choose a lot. You clearly do as well. And when you get to that point in your life that you just want to leave your mark, and that mark is just some kind of positivity, man. I mean, our time's running out, right? Every day is one more day to going back to where we all came from. So, it is what it is. And
well, we're all learning. Tomorrow's not promised. Right?
100%.
And that everything 100%. We love, especially for all of us in the rock community, it's something that comes up on the podcast over and over again, how inclusive, as crazy as the world is, it's exactly what you're talking about with your grandma singing Pantera. Like the rock community is this community where It's the freaks. It's the land of misfit toys. And we go to that church, that concert, where none of it matters when you go inside. And we're now this weird, tattooed, freaky example to the rest of the world about acceptance and understanding, and how if you just love rock music, like, I don't care what you're wearing. I just want to argue with you about guitar solos and stuff. Like, that's the extent of the conflict I'm looking for with you. And the world could use a little more of that.
Yeah, you said it very well. I've not heard it put like that before, but you're exactly right. It's like the land of misfit toys. Like, we're all kind of flawed in our brilliant kind of way, that's all kind of led us here, and like you said, when we go to that temple or that church, which is a concert, it gives us that identity again. It gives us that empowering that we need to give us that feel to fight through the rest of the world and those situations that we don't feel like we always fit in at. And you're exactly right. I mean, I can totally relate. And it doesn't matter about necessarily where you come from or what your past is. It's about a feeling that you have and why you relate to this music that we all love, which is rock or metal, and it's very interesting. And you're right. And have that taken away from us, it's you almost feel like it's vindicated with concerts on the horizon that we, I'm not going to get excited till I'm actually on stage singing, but they're booked, shows are booked. So I got to be confident that, things are going to go as planned. But yeah, it's very cool.
I was given the gift of the love of music from my parents, right? That I remember music always being in the house, and my dad loved bands with horn sections, and my mom gave me, probably the most precious gift that I've probably ever received in my life, which is the Beatles to me, which built the foundation of everything that I love about music. And do you always remember music being on when you were a kid in the house? Was that the same for you?
Yeah, in some ways, but my dad and mom weren't, my dad was from India and my mom was from Canada. So a lot of times my dad was working during the days. I mean, there were moments when, I can remember some shows. I remember a very vivid show, and again, my parents were first generation in this country. So they didn't have that history that they did with, I credit though, even though there was music in the house, but I credit it's in Michigan. Like everywhere I would go with the people I was around, there was always music around. And I think the Great Lakes had a big part to do with that, because every time we'd show up at a bonfire, we were always on the lake and someone had an acoustic guitar. So it would always be like, well, you play your song. Great. You've played it. Let me play a couple. So we'd always, in a healthy, fun way, we'd always try to one up each other, and whether it was the guys or girls, everyone would be playing and singing, and around that campfire, which is again, why you get that acoustic or that ballad presence in Pop Evil. Cause it just was always in my childhood and my youth, So I think Michigan was even more of an influence to me than even my the family. We had it around and it was there, but
and Indian culture is built on music. I mean, it's
for sure.
It's everywhere in Indian culture.
It was always American music, though. To be honest, like my dad, when he came over to the States, he just converted straight Western styles. I mean, he didn't push any of that stuff on us, and I think I'm more into the Indian sounds now, like the sitar. I've been trying, to dive into some of that more on possible future albums, and to dive into some of those sounds to give a little bit of that heritage influence possibly. But no, it was always main stuff like and Journey, Boston, a lot of that old school classic stuff that was very sing along, probably where a lot of the melody comes from me. We were always singing, and my dad wasn't necessarily a good singer, and my mom, but they'd always try. And then when I got older and could sing, they'd always be like, "Oh, let Leigh sing. It'll be great." So of course I was young. I'd sing my ears off back in the day. But I think Michigan though had a very strong influence when the band started to shape, and I knew I wanted to do this more like, full time.
Well, you and I have that shared experience that we both come from places that where we come from because we tell you in the first 5 minutes of meeting you.
Yeah.
That Detroit, Chicago, New York, Boston, there are these cities in these regions of the country that aren't just a place where you're from. They're in your soul and in your DNA, and they shape who you are as a person.
100%. Yeah. Absolutely.
And Detroit, I mean, the famous music that's come out of that city, it's
incredible.
I mean, it invented a lot of rock and roll. Like when you dig through the dinosaur dig of rock and roll, and you get to the fossils, like those are the fossils, man.
It is. I mean, again, I grew up on the west side of the state, so we're about 3 hours from Detroit. But all the early demos, all the old records, we all did in Detroit. So we'd have to basically move to Detroit and do all the demos, and because there was just nothing on the west side that was going to get us the traction we needed. So again, there was that constant battle. Like if you talk to the rest of the world, you'll say you're from Detroit. But if you talk to a Michigander, you say you're from the west side, because they understand there's that rivalry, right? It's the west and east coast in Detroit or in Michigan. So, it is, man. And it's that pride that's kind of instilled. I think it's that blue collar mentality that we work a little harder than you, and you're going to say you work a little harder than us. It's just kind of that playful back and forth banter that kind of gives you your identity, and you're constantly trying to one up the next and that's was our families. I think about my brothers, I think about my cousins and the family members that were around. We were constantly trying to outdo each other in a playful, healthy way, and they were always so supportive of all of us. But I think about even our family aspect that's involved in the band. Our families have always been very supportive. Always don't miss any shows if they can make it, and still to this day, very supportive. And I think that's an important. That's an important element to have when you think about like that Detroit rock sound or that Midwest kind of pride. There's a lot of family roots that connected to that.
When you make the decision as a child of first generation immigrants to say, I think I'm going to pursue this music thing. Please tell me you got a doctor or a lawyer as a brother that took the pressure off of you so that your parents didn't have a heart attack.
I do have a brother that's a lawyer for sure, but he was younger. So, and he's part manager of the band too. But he was young at the time. He wasn't a lawyer at the time. And that was not a fun conversation. It was not fun. I remember mom's giving me a talk, and I'm real close with my mom, and she was like, how long are you going to do this? She gave me that talk. Not a fun talk to have.
Do you have a backup plan? Can you go to college that kind of thing, first?
And I was like, what's the backup plan? What? Am I going to be a weekend warrior? What's wrong with that, man? Like, I'll go play Thursday through Sunday and, get some free drinks and get to do what I love, play some music, make some records on the side. And, I was always okay with that. Like, we were never really, and I think it shows even for Pop Evil's always been a little under the radar for years. Like, we never really got into it to be famous and money and all that stuff. Don't get me wrong. It's great. And we were definitely blessed for the success we've had, but we just wanted to play, man. Like, we didn't care about any of that stuff. Like, we all had our houses when we were young. We all lived by the lake. We all grew up in Michigan. Like, we all good. Like, we didn't care about any of that stuff. So it was like, as long as we got to play. And I remember when we got the call that we were going to go full time and do music for a living, we were so ecstatic that we just had, like, I think 100 or 150 shows that year. We were just like, dude, you have 150 shows. But of course, our family was like, but you don't got to work. We're like, what are you talking about? We got to work. That's fine. But we have 150 shows. That's insane. So we were just so excited to play, man. And to this day, and of course, COVID stripping it all from us. Like, and I can only speak for myself, I guess, but I can't wait to get back out and just do what I love. And I think COVID was a nice reminder that, this business is tough and it's challenging, and you're constantly trying to, outdo yourself. Your last record, it's such a business about the next. What's next? What do you got? What are you going to do now? So it was awesome to just forget about all that and just know that, man, dude, it all comes back to what you do on stage. You can make all these great hits and all this radio stuff in the studio or songs in the studio get played on the radio, but it's all you prove it live on stage every night, and you think about some of the great shows I've been, it's like those bands that I didn't even know I liked, but when you see them live, you're like, oh my God, that was awesome. And you go buy and download every record. You're like, oh, and we do that sometimes on tour. You'll be on tour with these bands and you'll be like, the most recent one, I remember being on tour with Cheap Trick and Poison, there in 2018 or whatever year it was, a few years back now. And I remember hearing all these songs on stage every night going, oh my God, I forgot about that song. I love that song. And then of course, they're up on watching us on stage and they're getting into our music. It's almost like sixth grade camp, man. When we go to camp in high school and you meet all these friends, it's like, it's a great time to kind of get back on stage and tour to say hey to your comrades and your fellow brethren, to be like, man, dude, you're going through this. We're going through this. Wow. Let's share a moment together and enjoy each other's music. And it's definitely the most important thing. It's just being up on stage playing.
I had Rick Nielsen from Cheap Trick on the podcast.
Yeah.
And I had him on video so that I could see him while we were talking. And I was like, holy fucking shit, that's Rick Nielsen from Cheap Trick.
Nicest guy.
Nicest guy, but let me tell you, when it comes to name dropping, that guy can drop the big names.
Oh, he's done it all. No doubt.
It all. And it's just, you just sit there and you're like, no, tell me more about the Beatles, please.
His stories, man.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah. And it's crazy. And he sat on stage every night, every show, watched every little bit of our set. And then, of course, he'd be in our dressing room right after. I mean, just hanging like he was still 18. Just such a real, like, he's just one of those guys you hope to be, because he lives it, breathes it, sleeps it. He is true by every definition of a rock star that you would ever. I mean, I don't know why his face isn't even more. I mean, they've been so underrated for years.
Cheap Trick is that band that every musician just goes, they're amazing.
And they're amazing. And just the way they've stayed firm as people, like, it's just, wow. I mean, you would, even if they weren't good, you'd still pull for them because they're just the best people on the planet. But of course, then you see them on stage and you're blown away. It's just, it was just awesome. And even Poison, it was great to see them back together, and they were all getting along. And I think that's important for the youth, because there's a lot of kids growing up in today's world that think playing the guitar is pressing some buttons on their smartphone, so I think it's so important for kids, that next generation, to not be afraid to, like rock, or to think that it's just some flawed genre on a shelf somewhere. I think that's so important.
It's coming back.
Sure. But I'm talking about the youth that are so like, they want stuff that's just so quick, right? All they got to do is play the game. They press a button, it's done. Hey, let's make a song. They press two buttons.
They don't want to sit down and learn to play it and put the time
Correct.
in. Yeah.
Correct. There's something about the discipline that's like sitting in your parents' garage or in your parents' basement with a 6-string and a bass and a friend on a bass, a friend on the drums, and, dreaming about taking on the world, and then starting from nothing and becoming something. I just think that's how our band broke. So I'm a big fan of that American dream, which is just, very much like the Beatles did in the UK. It's just starting with your buddies and just taking over and living the dream, and I think that's what I try to explain to the kids that I see, certainly that are in my life, to just be like, look, man, I get it. You don't want to go to practice and you don't want to learn how to play the guitar, but it's something that you'll give yourself, very much like golf, right? You can play golf with grandpa, you can play golf with your buddies, and you can play it throughout your life. Like basketball, football, you're not going to play that stuff at some point in your life. Guitar, you can play the guitar for the rest of your life. So I always try to, to show the importance of just instruments and why to stay, playing these things and starting bands or staying in band in school and just getting the most. I mean, it teaches you a lot about discipline and how to work for something.
Can I ask you about some of those established bands that you guys have played with? Kevin Martin from Candlebox was on the podcast. And we were talking about Neil Peart from Rush, because when I met Kevin, they were touring with Rush in like the early 90s. Yeah. And he told me this amazing story about how Neil Peart would stand on the side of the stage when Candlebox's first record came out. And then when they got off stage, Neil would break down the set for him and talk to him about ordering the songs and how he thought they could improve based on what he saw. So when Pop Evil is touring with a Cheap Trick or a Poison, bands that have been around the block, not only are you hanging around, but are you learning real experience skills from these bands that have been to the top of the mountaintop? And can you give me some of those examples?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, and they're also leading by example. I mean, you notice all of them, none of them drink. They all eat healthy. They're not, there's a reason why they've been around for 30 plus years, and I've always taken notice in that they
didn't start out that way though. Don't give them too much credit.
It didn't start out that way for us either. But it's interesting as you move forward and progress in your career that the health is a big part of it. We all are getting older every day, we're here and your body, the longer you've been around as a touring musician, especially from a vocal standpoint, your vocal's going to break down. It just is what it is. Even the greats, my voice will eventually be gone, and that's a fear.
You can get into radio. You can have a shitty voice like mine and make a living. Don't you worry about it, Leigh.
Well, you want to sound the best for everyone. There's always someone hearing you for the first time. And it's refreshing to hear that some of their work ethics, and whether they're not talking to you about it either, you see you watch. And then again, you watch how they are with their fans. You know, you were watching, and again, a band of our size, you're watching these bands and you're watching the little things, right? You're watching, okay, how are they acting around their fans and meet and greets? Like a band that big, or do they even care? Do you know what I mean? Are they still taking the time for every last one? Or are they just in and out? You know what I mean? And all these professionals, and that's what they are. They do the right things and they do the right little things, not just for their fans, not just for their friends. They do it for the people that are behind the scenes that the fans don't always see. The way they take care of their crew, their lighting teams, the people that are setting up the stages, the people that are there, you know, at 6 a.m. eating the donuts when they're not even there yet till 8 p.m. I mean, you know, they're taking care. They're giving high fives. They're giving shout outs. They're acknowledging the people that are doing those things that allow them to be the rock stars, even at 30 years plus, you know. And I think that that's things you pick up that they don't even have to tell us. You just watch and you see just how you see how they get a system. And whether it's just that sheet, you see, I know you've been to a lot of shows in your day, but you see the printouts and the order of how the day is going to go out.
Day
they follow
sheet,
that stuff too. The day sheet.
You wake up on the bus, you know where you are.
They know where you are, you know, and I think those day sheets are so important that, again, fans don't always realize. But, you know, when you're living on a bus and you get up that day, you don't know what you're going or what you're doing. Those day sheets are literally, they're everything. And, you know, you have a choice. Again, you can follow them and your day will go smooth, or you can try to like go against that and you have a long day or a long tour ahead of you. But again, those guys are straight pros. They don't have to follow. They can technically do what they want to do, but they still listen. They run the protocol. They do everything the right way. And then, of course, the discussions, like I said, even them all hanging in our dressing rooms, they don't need to do that. They don't need to come and care about. I mean, I had some good stuff I think about with Rob Halford. I mean, we toured with them in 2010. And I remember this would have been maybe 2014. And we played with Judas Priest. I think it was another day. So this is 3 or 4 years past. And again, Rob Halford wouldn't have to watch Pop Evil again if he didn't want to. And, you know, they were so kind to us that first tour. But when we toured with them in 2010, we were baby band. So, you know, who knows if I wouldn't have thought he would have even remembered. But there he was, side stage. And I looked side stage and he's pointing at me. And then when he got done, he said something to me over the lines. He goes, "I absolutely love Trenches." You know what I mean? And I was like, wow, he knew one of the songs, you know? And then again, I think I saw him at some award show. And he cut through the people and he gave me a big hug. And I just like, dude, that's real. That's a real thing. And, you know, it just reminds you as you move forward to just always be kind, because you just don't know when, you know, that band's stepping stone in the protocol of the growth of this whole rock and roll scheme. You know, I mean, every band's that's small today has the potential to be big tomorrow, and you just don't know. And the way that those are the biggest of bands that you could ever ask for. And the way they treated us it's a reminder that try to always treat those bands on the come up and those bands ahead of you to just be kind, man. It's such a small, like you said, community. We're all going with the same things, through the same things. We're all playing the same shows at some point. Sooner or later, you play with every band, because we're all trying to do the same thing, and that's entertain these fans that are there to watch us and people that are spending that hard-earned money. And now, more importantly, that hard-earned time. Time is everything now, you know? And so, you know, we want to give those people an opportunity to smile and get away from that chaotic things that are in their life, man, and give them a little bit of a release. And, you know, that's our job. And those pros understand that.
Well, I think it's one of the things when you go back and talk about the tight-knit rock community and the loyalty of the fans, I think rock and country, there's a longevity of career that's possible in rock. I mean, you look at the Stones, they're still doing it, man. Like, that the bands realize, wow, we could keep doing this if we're healthy. The fans are still going to come and see us if we treat them right. Whereas with pop and some other genres of music, there is no loyalty and longevity of career. And that's what is another thing that makes rock so special, is that once they love you forever.
Yeah. I mean,
if you treat them right.
100%. You know, I mean, rock, the cool thing for me with rock is you grow up in front of your fans, you know, and all the peaks and valleys, the trials, tribulations, the good songs, the bad songs. I mean, the fans definitely let you know about it, things they don't like, but they also are forgiving to just be like, you know, as long as you, like you said, you treat them right, or you don't forget them and you still give them music. Like, I think that's the cool duality with this new album that at least we've been considering, is like the true versatility of this album is the balance between old school Pop Evil and new school pop people, where the band's going and growing, and we've had band member changes. I mean, let's be real. Bands nowadays have to change. Like people, it's not like it was 20, 30 years ago where you could have 2 big albums and, take 3 or 4 years off. I mean, that doesn't exist anymore. So what happens in the meantime is life happens. People's lives change and evolve over time. So it's kind of much like a sport team. I mean, even Tom Brady had to go to a different team to keep it fresh and keep his own. I get it. I know.
Why'd you have to bring it up?
I wasn't happy about it either. God. But I knew it was a reference that you would understand.
Jesus, Leigh, come on.
I get it. I know.
Do you know what that was like in Boston through the lockdown to have to live through that shit? Come on.
I can only imagine. And you didn't think I was going to get at least asking you what you thought about that.
And Gronk too? God.
Double slap in the face.
Antonio Brown and then a Super Bowl. Like, this is why we drink, Leigh.
But how can you even be mad at him, right?
No, it's the Patriots South. That's why we all look at it. We just call it the Patriots South. The Buccaneers, they're just the Patriots South. It's like,
that's all we got.
That's all it is. You're welcome for having our team down there.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, well, I'm a Lions fan, so you guys are both in a better position than me. So.
But that's the thing about Detroit, though. The same thing with Boston. You grew up in Boston. Look, when I was a kid, being a Boston sports fan, unless you were, in my era, like a Larry Bird Celtics era, the Sox lost, the Buckner era, the Squish the Fish.
Yeah. You took your lumps, man.
86 Super Bowl against William the Refrigerator, goddamn Perry in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I remember that Super Bowl.
Yeah, so do I. I was traumatized for years. That's why I don't care about shoving all the rings up everybody's asses now. Because being a sports fan was hard for a long time here.
It was.
Yeah.
Well, look, you guys can make some moves this offseason. I mean, Patriots could be back a bit here.
There's a lot going on. It's very interesting. And people are like, oh, now Tom Brady's going, you're not a Patriots fan anymore. Now, I've been a Patriots fan since I was born.
Yeah.
I'll be a Patriots fan till the day I die. Same thing with the Sox, the B's, and the C's. It's like you grow up in your town. Yeah. They're your teams. Forever.
There's certain cities that you go to, because obviously I'm a Michigan boy. So, and I'm not just saying this, but there's 2 cities that stand out that there's just, no, three. They're so special about their teams. Obviously Boston, all you have to do is visit there, and there's a pride there, not just for one team, but just for their sports. Yeah. It's different, Me, I don't think it's quite the same to me as New York. New York has so much involved, but then the next one is Green Bay. That is insane. Very much like Boston. There's a lot of pride. And then, of course, lastly, Seattle. It's just those 3 cities. It's hard not to get caught up.
There's
Chicago. Maybe I don't see Chicago as much just because I grew up closer to there. Yeah, maybe. But to me, those 3 to me, again, maybe because, again, they are so far away, and I was never in Boston. I was never in Seattle or Green Bay growing up. So it's hard not to be in those cities and not get caught up in the excitement that is, the sport franchise.
And I still got to come here when you're not a fan, man, because ask Morgan from Seven Dust, the diehard Yankees fan, what it's like when he comes here.
Oh, that's right.
He was on the podcast and we talked about some early stories because they recorded the home record here. And I took him to Fenway to a game. And
I'm dying to go. We got to go to one. You got to go to my first.
Anytime. I took Jacoby Shaddix from Papa Roach to his first game. I took Brent Smith from Shinedown to his first game. You're invited anytime you want, man. Absolutely.
I got to be on the. I got to go with you. I have to go with the true diehard.
Yes.
We got to do it.
We'll be singing Neil Diamond, passing hot dogs around.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I would love it.
Hell
I would love it.
I
would love it.
I'm not going to bet you though. I took Zach Wilde to a game and we made a bet about the outcome of a Sox-Yankees game, and my Sox let me down, man. And he made me go on stage at Ozfest in a Yankees jersey, and I still...
Oh, no.
Dude, I
can't believe you made that bet. I
thought the Sox were going to have my back, man. I wanted to see Zach Wilde in a Red Sox jersey. I wanted to see that shit happen, and my Sox let me down. And even our own fans, I got out on that stage in that Yankees jersey, and people were like... Fuck you! That's how it is.
Is that on YouTube? I'm going to search that on YouTube.
Dude,
tonight.
I got a picture.
In a Yankees.
I got a picture of me backstage at that year's Ozfest wearing a Jeter's jersey with Geezer Butler standing next to me.
Ooh.
And I'm like, I get one picture with Geezer Butler and I got to be wearing pinstripes. Like, what the fuck? Brutal.
Yeah, you wouldn't expect it to be any other way, right?
No, but you know what? Like, those are the stories, though. The same thing with Morgan. We were laughing.
Yeah.
He wore a Yankees hat to Fenway, and people knew he was Morgan Rose from Seven Dust, and they were screaming at him and swearing at him. One guy yells down the stairs, "Hey, Yankees fan, get up here so I can fuck you in the ass." And Morgan just looked at me, and I go, "Dude, I told you not to wear that shit, man." But they make
Did he take it off or just keep it?
No,
did he just wear it strong?
He wore it like an asshole. Of course he did.
I love it, man.
But these are all the stories that, like, you know, when I look back and all these conversations that I've been able to have on the podcast and reconnecting with friends over the years and going back and talking about all these memories and these stupid things we've done, it's like those are the memories that you laugh about and always remember years later. And it's like, 100%. That's what it's all about. It's like, dude, I don't know about you. The first guy to spill a beer on me at a rock show, I'm just going to fucking hug the guy. I can't wait to get my toes stepped on at a show. I miss even the shitty stuff.
Yeah.
Because it's the whole experience. I miss the crowding and the sweaty dude next to me and like all of that stuff.
And from my perspective, I miss the piss floored stain smell of the venue when you first walk in the morning.
Oh yeah, because you can't get that smell out no matter how much bleach you use.
Yep. I miss Walmart at 11:30 just before it's going to close at 12. And you're trying to just get some groceries. I miss all that. I miss the truck stop shower. I miss all that good stuff, man.
So that was one of the things I wanted to ask you, right? Because I was a roadie before I was in radio. So truck stops at 3 a.m., I know that life. Mm-hmm. And some of those truck stops, for anybody that hasn't really spent a lot of time on the road, these truck stops are not just the little convenience store at the gas station. These things are like mecca. Like, you can solve any problem in your life at one of these truck stops. So
those showers are nicer than hotels, man.
Oh yeah. So
they're real nice.
What's something you remember buying at a truck stop?
Oh, everything, man. It's almost like, no, you know what's crazy? Everyone's tight with their money usually, with their per diem or whatever it is, their money that they get on the day. And then of course, when we get to the truck stop at night, they'll buy those fluorescent, if you're like school crosswalk and you have those fluorescent, weird, vests. Vests on. Oh, they'll buy the vest. They'll buy, they were buying masks before they were cool. They were buying all that stuff. I remember, of course, everyone's buying all this unnecessary garbage candy, and of course it's at speedways or these truck stops. It's all the experimental candy for some reason that it's just out brand new. It's like Nestle Crunch mixed with whatchamacallit, mixed with Three Musketeers, but you have to try it.
And it's got nerds in there just to be weird.
Yes. Yep. And then of course everyone's in the front of the bus and everyone's sampling what'd you get? So, oh my gosh, we bought so many things. Or then there's a collection of those magnets, right? Because you're like, hey, we're in Montana, dude. I need a Montana magnet on my fridge. God forbid. So you're buying all kinds of stuff, man.
Where's the weirdest place you ever heard your music?
Oh, probably tons, but I remember this one spot. We were at Lake Minnetonka, Minnesota. And I remember, because again, and this is a true story. I don't necessarily listen to the pop people stuff, that's older. I don't, unless I hear it on the radio or in streaming or in the, in a venue or an arena or something like that for a sporting event. But I remember being on a boat and they were playing Hero was on. And I remember thinking to myself, I'm like, this sounds a lot like one of our songs. Someone ripped us off, and they're all looking at me. They're like, "Are you fucking with us? Are you serious?" And then I'm like, "Yeah, dude, this sounds like one of our songs." And I'm like, "Dude, this Hero." I hadn't heard Hero. I mean, that was our first song that we released, back in 2007. I never. So totally was hilarious. I had no idea it was our song. So they were. They had a nice kick out of that for the day to be like, we didn't even remember that. I'm like, no, I didn't.
Did you remember when you heard your song on the radio the first time?
I think so. It was kind of I remember going in. We pitched the big radio station here in Grand Rapids, Michigan, that we had. Again, I wasn't trying to get played on the radio. I was just like, look, this is what a local band's doing in your town. If you need us for covers, we can do that. If you need us for, national, opening spots, we can do that as well. And I remember my buddy called me and he's like, the PD, again, I had no idea what a PD was at the time. But he's like, the program director's going to add your record. And I'm like, okay, what does that mean? And he goes, no, it's like permanently added we're going to add it to Power. And I'm like, what's that mean? And I'm like, you're not just going to get it one a day. You're going to get it all day long. And so that was when we first knew. And I'm like, oh my God, and again, you would hear it. But I think in the early days when you heard it, you didn't really enjoy it, right? Because you're just like, okay, and you're looking at your phone. You're like, did everyone hear that song? Who am I going to get calls from? Because in those days, we were the big fish in the small pond. And, we were all just freshly into college. So the whole city was all, our friends and youth, And, I remember one story. It's one of my favorite. I call it my Crossfade story. And I just heard from Crossfade just a couple of days ago. They called me to congratulate me on the record, and love that band to this day. One of my favorite bands, just some of the, the stuff they did. I keep pestering. I'm like, when are you guys coming back on tour, man? I want to sing with y'all. And just, I remember them coming big fish in a small pond, and we pulled this little stunt on them because in those days it was a different time. And we were friends with all the police. So we had like a Pop Evil house that was kind of like Project X. I remember. And I remember we just played a show with Crossfade, and I said, look, why don't you come? It was a Muskegon they played, so an hour away. It was Grand Rapids. And I go, why don't you come back to Grand Rapids? We got the band house, hot tub pool party. There'll be like 300 people there. Why don't you guys come back and hang with us? And they're like, okay, that's fine. So they come back and hang, and they're sitting up by the hot tub in these chairs, Mitch and Ed and Wes, I think. And then next thing you know, the cops come. And they're like, oh my God, we're going to have to take you guys to jail. And of course, we know the police guys are there. They're our buddies, So they come there, and I'm like, dude, I go, give Crossfade the works.
It sounds like a bachelorette party, and I'm waiting for them to take their pants off.
Yeah, well, they come up and they're like, dude, look, this is crazy. There's a lot of minors here drinking or whatever, and we're going to have to take you guys to jail tonight. And of course, they get all freaked out and they're going nuts. And then they go, what are you drinking? And they grab the beer from one of them and then start drinking it, and they're like, what? And then of course the officers sit down, put their legs in the hot tub. And of course we break the news that
I've seen pornos that start like this, Leigh.
Well, that I won't comment anymore towards the porn aspect of the story, but to the police aspect, that's how it went down. That's all I remember.
When you get back out on the road with the band, I know when you work with people, because it was like this with Mike Shue at WAAF and I, when you work with people all the time, you have your own language that's usually quotes of movies. When Pop Evil gets back together and gets back on the bus and goes out on the road, what movies are the language of Pop Evil? What movies are you guys quoting all the time?
I'm not a big movie quoter, but I was just quoting one the other day because it was so hot. Milk was a bad choice. So maybe that would be. I don't know. I'm such a bad movie quoter, dude. Yeah, but I was thinking about Milk was a bad choice. I don't know if it fits Pop Evil, but I was saying to one of the kids because one of the kids that are tiny. They of course don't know Will Ferrell, and they were talking about Anchorman, and I'm like, dude, milk, and all they drink is milk, and I'm like, you should drink milk when it's like 90 degrees out. And of course, so they challenged me to do it, and I'm like, Milk was a bad choice. You should watch that movie. So that's what. Again, nothing to do with probably your question, but I'm a good storyteller, I guess.
I started, when I was doing just these interviews on the radio, right? There's a difference between doing a podcast interview like I do and then using it on my radio show, or doing an interview for the radio, because you're in and out so quick. You can't have these long, amazing conversations a lot of the time.
Yeah.
One of the conversations and one of the questions that has come out of this podcast that I absolutely love every answer to, because I'm such a fan of music and creativity and songwriting, because I don't have those gifts. And I ask this now of every songwriter I know, so there's no pressure for you, but I know your answer is going to be great. If you could go and name a song from any artist in any genre, any style of music from any time that you wish you wrote as a songwriter, and why, what would it be?
Oh, God, it's tough on the spot.
I know it is. That's why I love the question.
Well, certainly any Rage Against the Machine song, just for the fact that they're so they're so powerful, impactful, and the way that they move the audiences. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I mean, Killing in the Name, Freedom. I mean, those were also so powerful. Wake Up. I mean, I think back in when we started, those were just so powerful to me. And you even Bow to the Wall. Just the way that when Kid Rock was on the rise, just the way that the state of Michigan was kind of just moving towards him. I still remember that show with Bob. We went and saw. This was early on in his career, and he played 2 or 3 songs in, and someone threw like a empty glass bottle at him, and it missed him, and he dodged it. And of course, then he gave us the finger, told us to F off, and then walked off the stage. And we were like, "Who's this guy? Like, really? Who's this guy?" And of course, then he becomes Kid Rock. So it was. Again, I love Kid Rock, so I mean a lot of that stuff. But then you think about some of the ballads. Some of those timeless songs, "Stairway to Heaven." I mean, God, how can you really pick a song like even "Dream On" by Aerosmith? Like, are you kidding me? Like, some of that stuff is just you're gonna be able to hear that stuff generation after generation, after generation, and want to get into music. So I mean, depends on what move. If I just want to break stuff and throw down, I mean, Rage, stuff like that, or even Metallica, some old school Metallica. But then, when you just think about those timeless classics, as far as
that's the thing. It's like the craft of songwriting.
Yeah.
So it's like when you break down a song lyrically, melody wise, and you just look and you go, "Oh, that song is perfect." Like,
yeah, I mean, it's interesting because from a songwriter perspective, that song's perfect. But then there's the songs that might not be perfect, but they just change the way they change for you because you can relate to them. And I mean, I even think of one of ours, like with Torn to Pieces. It was so, forget that it was one of our songs. It was just a song that helped me deal with the loss of my dad. I mean, at the end of the day, a true songwriter is just you're letting that negative energy go, right? I mean, if there's no band and I'm sitting in Boston with you, or you're sitting in Detroit with me at a bar, and I'm like, Carrie, check this out. Like, I just wrote this song, and you're like, wow. And even if you can't relate to it, but you see the tears pour down on my face, and you see that I'm releasing that negativity, it's just, that's the perfect song, but it wouldn't be necessarily a perfect song for you if you're not dealing with that. So that one for me, if I think about the most impactful song in my life, that song, because it was like a gift to my dad, like, thank you. And I wish I could have told you I loved you one last time. I was on tour chasing my dream in so many ways, being selfish. I mean, I was doing something I wanted to do rather than, be home with him when he passed on, so, but again, the perfect song, I don't know if there's more my honest answers. I'm sure there's one if I could think about it, but Again, I'm so bad on the spot. What songs I remember? I couldn't even tell you my favorite song right now. So
well, that's the gift of music, is just how personal and subjective it is. That it impacts. Right. You could write a party song, but it hits somebody because of a memory or something, and it means something totally different. Yeah. And you hit that on the spot. It's like what those songs mean to you, and we get that now. I mean, this is our 6th album, our 20-year anniversary. So you get that. Those are some of my favorite comments when we meet the fans. Is wow, this song helped me get through this, or this song was playing. I first heard this song when I was going through when I first got married, or I first met my love of my life. And you're like, wow, like those are such powerful things to think about, that your songs that you've created could be a part of people's, best and worst memories. I mean, there's mixed emotions for both those things. So yeah, man, it's just, it just motivates you to get out there and try to outdo your last one, or your last song, your last album. I love the fact that the new album, is it versatile or versatile?
However, I say both.
Okay,
whatever you're comfortable with. Whatever you're comfortable with.
I love that bands have been riding this vinyl wave, because I am just loving it, man. And that there's so much attention being paid to the gram of the vinyl itself, to the bifold, to the artwork. And you guys did that. I can't believe cassettes are even back, to be perfectly honest. But the vinyl I totally get, because it's such an experience to hold it in your hands and forces you to sit still and experience the music in a real way, because it's not like you're going to be out running with your goddamn record player.
Right. With your headphones on. Yeah. No, and you actually hit it too. I've been trying to get the cassette tape for years, and we're finally just making one. So I'm excited about that.
I can't believe it's back.
It's back. It's crazy, and I hope it's back for a long time, because that's old school to me, the cassette tape. So, but the vinyls, absolutely. I mean, the way that the labels are spending good money on making sure the vinyls are basically it's almost like your press kit, like they're spending the money now to make those vinyls exciting and entertaining to the fans that do collect vinyls and do enjoy that market, and that's exciting. I never would have thought we would have had any vinyls, and I think back into the early Pop Evil vinyl catalog, it was like such an afterthought. It's like, wow, we got a vinyl. This is so cool. And now they're becoming, so much more mainstream. It's like, look, okay, that was the first thing we talked about, is like, we're going to do a vinyl. We don't know if we're going to do the CD. So I was like, we're not going to do the CD. This is crazy. So I'm like, all right. But we ended up doing all three, the CD and the vinyl and the cassette tape. But it's the vinyl, man, it just keeps growing, and there's such a demand for it lately. It's exciting, to think vintage is coming back in so many different ways.
Before I let you go, I got to ask you this question, because I saw a lot of debate online about it. I had a great conversation with Jack Underkoffler from Dead Poets Society a few weeks ago. And we were talking, my sister and I started researching our family lineage through the lockdown, because like, what else are you going to do? You get on Ancestry or whatever, and you start researching it all. And Jack and I were talking about it on the podcast, and he went into this whole discussion about the meaning of his name. And what he had learned about his name. And I bring it up with you because as I was prepping, not that I needed to do a lot of research on you because I've known you for so many years, but I started seeing this argument online amongst fans about the proper pronunciation of your last name.
I love it.
And I was like, you know what? I'm going to ask him about it in the podcast, because I had that conversation with Jack, and he went into this whole history of where his last name came from and what it means. And because your dad was an immigrant, like, I was curious, can you settle the debate about how to pronounce your name, please?
Well, it was pronounced Kakaty back in the day. It was Kakoty. And then, I remember when Dad came, as it got more westernized, they put the K instead of the O. So it was Kakaty. So it's like karate with the K. Kakaty. Like Ducati, the bike. Kakaty.
So I thought it was very interesting that people were like, I'm like, wow, they're into this discussion about.
They get into it. I haven't seen it yet. I haven't been on the Google. I've been trying to avoid all the social media as much as I can, because it's so intense now. And I got the TikTok dialed in, but I haven't heard the debate. But yes, people have hacked my name up for years. I'm just so used to it. They usually say Kakaty or whatever it is, but Kakaty, that's the way.
Well, you stay away from social, but I did watch you on Instagram Live buying your own album at Target.
Oh, I did do that. It was awesome to kind of go in and the baseball guys are back. You guys win the baseball game?
Yeah.
Oh, you won the baseball game?
14-0.
Oh, man. All right, I'm almost done. I want to hear about it.
Are you on the interview?
Yeah, I'm on the interview. So you say hi to everyone in Boston.
Hi.
Hi.
There they go.
Come on, this is international now, babe. I got 102
it's
countries.
International. That's right. What am I thinking about?
Come on, man.
Say hi to everyone around the world.
That's
everyone
right.
around the world. But special love to the people in Boston.
That's right.
Got to give them some love.
That's right.
But it's buying the Target. Yeah, I'm superstitious as ever, and I always have to buy. Normally I'd buy it at Best Buy, but Best Buy, I think we did the exclusive anyway with Target. So I was like, I got to go buy it, man. And I actually was home. I was home for a few weeks in Michigan, so I got to buy it from the hometown, and all the people came out, and it was crazy, and it was weird because I've been able to go out, So and again, all the family and friends are like, are you afraid to go out now? And I'm like, no, dude, I normally wear a mask. Nobody recognized me, but I've had the mask off and immediately, yo, what's up, Leigh, Poppy? I'm like, oh my God. Like I thought, so again, you don't always, you're not thinking about that stuff, but it was great to, again, have the fans be excited about it and kind of put me back in that frame of mind that, shows are on the horizon. It's time.
Yeah, they are.
And I get ready for rocking some shows.
So what's up with Pop Evil? What's the plan?
Just shows. There's a lot of interesting things. Haley's, overseas with these visa and all these travel things. We're fingers crossed she's going to get over. But, either way, we got a great team to just get. Again, I think the fans understand that, at least post-COVID early on, things might be a little different and weird just because we're not waiting anymore. Like it's time to go. Like we're going to do the best we can with the situations that we have. And I think that speaks for every band, but we just want to go and I think we just want to get 2021 over with. Yeah. So by 2022, we'll be back to normal, and things will be kind of, back in the flow. And the great news is we have an album out, a new single probably coming out here this summer, and just do basically what we always known, and that's play shows nonstop and just try to make up for as much lost time as possible. And then I'm probably back in the studio sooner or later. That's the only bad news, that probably, this album probably is for a lot of us washed albums. COVID album just kind of, it's there and gone, and you got to do another one. So good for the fans to get more music and just see what happens.
Well, save a day for me so I can take you to a ball game.
Oh my gosh, I'm holding you to it. That would mean a lot. I cannot wait to do Fenway for the first time with you, Mistress Carrie. It would be a true honor.
Absolutely. You can write that in pen, not pencil.
I'm on it. And then we're going to Mike. Then I'm taking in Mike Pastries.
Yes.
My favorite. I got to get a cannoli, man. Dude. My favorite. I've been craving it. I've been craving one.
Let me tell you, a local thing. Yeah. They make the best pistachio macaroons on the planet.
Oh my God, this is my favorite macaroon. Dude, you got to take me there. Then you got to show me that.
Are you kidding me? It's consider it done. There. Consider it done.
It's going to be a cheat day. It's going to be a fat day. Cannolis, macaroons.
Oh, it's going to be on. All that squawking you did about living a healthy lifestyle for longevity of career, and then there's going to be pictures of you on Instagram.
We'll walk it off when we go to the ballpark. You know what I'm saying? We'll walk it off. It'll be good.
It was so good to catch up with you. Thank you so much for being so generous with your time. It was great to see you.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for having me. And I look forward to seeing you. Hopefully we're doing, maybe I can get to your studio in person one of these days.
Dude, are you kidding? I would love it.
It looks awesome.
I'm going to hit you up to come in the war room too. When you guys announce your tour and stuff, you're coming in the war room.
I can't wait. Let's do it.
Let's do it. I'll see you soon.
Thank you so much.
Tell them congratulations on the baseball game.
Oh, they won. That's right. The kiddos won, man. I got to go find out about it. Get on it.
Bye.
Thank you. Yeah. Bye now.
There he is, Leigh Kakaty from Pop Evil. If you want to hear some of the new music, check out the corresponding playlist for episode 53. Every full-length episode of the Mistress Carrie podcast gets a corresponding playlist where you can find all of the music that we talked about. In the show notes of the podcast, you'll also find links to find Leigh online and get more information on Pop Evil, and you'll also find all of my social media links as well. If you like what you heard, don't forget to hit subscribe so you don't miss anything from the Mistress Carrie podcast. New full-length episodes come out every Wednesday, plus every weekday you get the Sit Rep. The Situation Report is all of your rock news, music headlines, and industry info in less than 5 minutes. And if you don't mind, give us a 5-star review and leave a comment so I know what you thought of the episode. Once again, thanks to our sponsors, Digital Federal Credit Union at dcu.org/careers, because they're hiring. And also Jumptown Skydiving, who's offering service industry discounts on tandem skydives Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday at jumptown.com. And make sure you check out the official online Mistress Carrie store at mistresscarrie.com. The Mistress Carrie podcast is a proud member of the Pantheon Podcast Network.